up. Listen, you could be the hottest, most finest, most cutest, most sweetest man out there. Like, you could be so fine, so attractive, right? Y'all with me? But if I'm not able to see your fruit, then you actually become unattractive. Like, as I'm walking with Christ and I'm on this journey, like, I am learning that seeing the fruit in someone, seeing the fruit that someone bears, is so much more attractive than your physical appearance. You could be fine, like, you could be hot, but if I am not able to see the fruit that you actually bear, then it's a no for me. It's a no for me. And God has been revealing that to me. God has truly been revealing that to me as I'm on this walk, as I'm in my singleness era, as I'm in my waiting season. Like, yo, like, if I don't know, like, you can go to church. You can go to church on a Sunday, but if you don't tell me what you do from Sunday to Sunday, I'm talking about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, then it's a no for me. Like, what are you doing Sunday to Sunday? Like, you can come to church. That's cool. That's cool. That's sweet. That's cute. But what are you doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Because I really want to know. Like, men of God, women of God, like, what are we actually doing to show the fruits that we actually bear? Like, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Like, is it showing? Because that's when the attractiveness comes through. Yes.
Wait, and I do have to say, they are counterfeit men. I've spoken about this before. Just because a man tells you that they read the 5 love languages and they go to church and they, whatever, men and women, to be honest, there's counterfeit everywhere. The fruit of their spirit is what speaks. That is it. It's not what they're saying. Because I have met men who have come into my life knowing that I like to go to church, and that they're like, yeah, I'm also, and I do, and I sit, and then I look and I wait, because that's all we have to do. Be opened, right? And I watch and observe, and the behavior or the way they speak or the way they treat other people does not show that. And that's why it's a no-go, because it's counterfeit. You're not going to tell them how to behave. You're not going to tell them what they should be or not doing. That's not up for you for discussion. Let people be who they are. But also watch. Give yourself enough time to watch and observe and see if that is truly real, or it's a facade, or it's an act, or it's a growing phase, right? Let people show you who they are. And also be very mindful that this is okay. Like, even if someone isn't where, 100% where you wish they'd be, I'm not saying don't date them. This is just kind of advice on dating when it comes to you and your value, because you do deserve someone and a man who's willing to pursue you and get to where you're at today, to get you, not just, I like you, so we should hit it off. I don't date. I do not currently date, or have ever currently dated, the way that our culture tells us to date. I'm just showing you my side. Now, I know culture says otherwise. You should be very open and free, and I get it. We're all human. We all have confusions and desires, and however, I'm giving you that big sis advice because I know that you are worth so much. You as a human being, whether you're a man or a woman, you are worth a lot. Your unique values, talents, skills, experiences, your hurt, your pain, all of that is worth a lot to God. So it should be valued by the right person. And when we're constantly in this never-ending pursuit of finding someone, we lose ourselves. And I think that instead of losing yourself, if you just begin to focus on valuing who you are in that moment and just kind of nurturing your road and your journey. I just know that the moment you get to that state of mind where you're like, I'm aware of what I want, what I require, who I am, and what I need in a relationship, and letting someone meet you there, even though it does take time, right? It doesn't come instantly for some of us, because again, I've been single for 3 years. But there was a book I read that really did change that thought for me, because I knew that year, or whatever, however long my season of singlehood was to prep me, was to really pour into me everything that I needed to be a better Jeshmari, a better woman, in the other sense, a better partner in the future. So I hope that you can meet your values and standards, and don't let anyone come in and tell you that they're too high or unreachable, because they're not.
I know this is going to hurt some feelings because it definitely made me hurt my own. But that person that you're fantasizing about, that person you're hoping you wanted to be in a relationship with, that person that's either walked away from you or you had to walk away from them for whatever reason it was, do you want them for exactly who they are right now? Or do you want them for who you think they could become, or who they may want to become? Because if that's the case, you don't actually want them as a person. You're wanting this imaginary future that may or may not even exist. So the best thing you can do is focus on yourself and let someone else come into your life that is exactly who you want in this point in time, because you trying to fix someone or change someone, or them promising they're going to fix up or change up, what's the point, right? Like, no one wants to be a project. No one wants to have to build someone else up to become someone that they might want them to be one day. And you don't even know if that's what you want because you haven't had it yet. So you know what you need to do.
Hold it real tight while I tell you this. You have to stop being seduced by the potential of a person and start being incredibly turned off by the proof of who they actually are. I read something recently that said water has no effect on plastic flowers. And as soon as you apply that into your everyday relationships, the easier it will become to realize that some of you are genuinely pouring and watering things that are not real. Relationships and people that you have romanticized in your head based off of potential and not current present. So listen very carefully. Stop falling in love with potential. You will hurt your own feelings every single time. You will pour yourself dry, watering people and things that were never real to begin with.
Let's be clear. If they don't have this, 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 and or this, it is a gifts can be fake, fruit cannot. Test them by the fruits of the Spirit. Period.
Stop relating to every single man from a romantic perspective. Stop romanticizing every man that you meet. This is a rule that will actually change your life when you apply it and when you deep it, okay? And this is for the girlies. This is for the Christian girlies, but it'll also bless the non-Christian girlies. Listen, I used to have this hard and fast rule. I would even tell my friends that, like, I didn't see the point of being friends with men, because I've always found it easy to make friends with other girls, with other women. I've always just been a girl's girl, so I never really saw the point in having a friendship with a man. And that's because in my mind, I categorized men in two sections: either romantic potential or nothing. There was no in between for me. And I know that this is how a lot of the girlies think, and this is also how a lot of men think, but this video is specifically for the girlies. So it's dangerous to think this way. It's dangerous, and it's also not helpful. It's really not helpful in any aspect, okay? And I'll give you about three reasons why. So number one, if you're a Christian, then you know that our number one mandate in this world is to actually be a light of Christ. That's actually the number one mandate of every single Christian, is to be a light of Christ, to represent Jesus in every single sphere that God has called you to. So whatever sphere God has called you to, you're actually meant to be a light in that sphere. Whether, you're meant to be a light at your workplace, to your friendship group, whatever, you're called to be a light of Christ. You are called to share your testimony with somebody. You're called to preach the gospel to them. You're called to just in your behavior represent who Jesus is, because you might be the only Bible that a person reads. So the reason you're supposed to learn to actually, I guess, view men as human beings, which is really what it is understand that both men and women need to be saved. So the Lord might bring a man into your life, or you might come across a man at work or at church even, that is not meant to be your husband, is just meant to be somebody that you represent Jesus to, whether that's you sharing your testimony with them, inviting them to church, or even praying for them, right? That could be the only reason that God has allowed you to meet that person or allowed that person to come into your life. And sometimes we don't recognize that as women because we're so black and white. It's either he's romantic potential or he's nothing. And that's why so many of us are also delulu when some men are nice to us, because we think if this man is nice to me, he must automatically be in love with me. That is not the case. Sometimes people are just nice because they're nice. So number one, understand that that man is a soul who also needs saving, and you might just be called to share a testimony with him, right? Now, let me put this out there before I go any further. Have boundaries. Guard your purity, guard your heart. So don't allow yourself to be put in compromising situations where you will sin. So understand the importance of boundaries, but also don't close yourself off to even just talking to a man. Because again, you could be the person that brings him closer to Jesus, or that plants a valuable seed in his heart. The second reason is because, why it's important to view men from the lens of just being a human being or a brother in Christ or whatever, is because some of us want to be in platonic relationships, we want to be in romantic relationships, but we don't understand how to speak to men. And this is something that, isn't necessarily our fault, because the media does send a message to most women that the only thing that matters is your physical. So the only thing that matters is your physical appearance, your sexual appeal. And so a lot of us have learned to relate to men from places that are purely sexual or physical because of the media, because of trauma, because of whatever it is that we learned that isn't true growing up, right? So too many of us lead with sex first, with sex appeal first, with beauty first. And we might find ourselves in situations where, you're able to attract a man because of your sexual appeal or because of your beauty, but you're never able to sustain a monogamous long-term relationship if that is what you want, right? Because you've got the outward appearance down, but you haven't got the character down. You haven't learned how to speak to a man, essentially. And if you want to have a long-term marriage with a man, you need to learn to speak to him. Ladies, for some of us, it's not necessarily that we need to do anything more to our physical appearance. It's maybe God is trying to work on your character and your heart, right? So the Lord may bring a man into your life to be your friend so that he can teach you to relate to a man and to speak to a man. That's happened in my own life, right? The third thing is, again, if you don't learn to view men from this lens of human being first, soul first, then it's not going to serve you in the workplace. It's not going to serve you at church, because it's not going to serve you anywhere. Because if we think practically, your man is going to be one human being. Okay? Your husband is one man, meaning most of the men you meet are not your husband. So most of the men you meet will either be colleagues or acquaintances or business partners, right? But if you have this black and white way of thinking where you're like, oh, if he's not my husband, I'm not talking to him, then you're going to disadvantage yourself in the world of business or in education or in whatever. I'm sorry, my brother is just doing the most. But you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage in whatever field it is that you're in, whether that's at your workplace, at your school, whatever, because you're not able to, again, relate to a man as a colleague or as a business partner or as whatever. And that's necessary if you want to grow a business or if you want to excel at your workplace or if you want to do whatever. So we need to have more of these conversations. We need to start to humanize men, okay? And one thing I've found is that when I started to humanize men and sort of take this the same approach that I take with my platonic female friends, because I'm able to make female friends really, really easily. When I started to do the same thing, I noticed that my life got so much richer in terms of the male acquaintances I have, in terms of the male perspective I'm now privy to. I understand, men better, which is a benefit to me as somebody who wants to be in a platonic, a monogamous long-term relationship with a man. And it's just enriched my life. It's given me a new perspective, right? If Jesus had taken this black and white approach that we sometimes have as women of, I'm not going to talk to the opposite sex, then he wouldn't have been able to do amazing things in the lives of women like the woman at the well, or, the woman with the issue of blood, or Mary and Martha. So even Jesus understood that, primarily, these are God's children. These are souls that need to be saved, that need, to be evangelized to, that sometimes just need kindness and love, from a pure platonic, brotherly, sisterly standpoint. So yeah, I think that we need to have more of these conversations, and I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think I'm right, or what's your experience in terms of this whole relational situation? God is still teaching me, of course, but I just think it's a really important topic. And we, again, as the body of Christ, need to learn how to relate to each other again from my brother in Christ, my sister in Christ, from a brotherly, sisterly place, because it's just better for us overall, right? So yeah, God bless you.
Okay, I really felt led to make this video, and I'm about to completely blow some of your minds. But what if I told you that Rachel was never God's plan? What if I told you that Jacob worked 14 years for a woman that God never told him to marry? What if I told you that we've been lied to about this being some great love story and proving that true love waits? Okay, so Rachel was a counterfeit. Sorry, I have notes, so I'm going to read off of those. She was chosen through lust and by sight, not by the Spirit. There was no discernment in choosing her. Jacob just saw her and he wanted her. So how do we know that she's a counterfeit? How do I know that I'm right? We have a few clues. And our first big clue comes from how Abraham's servant found Rebecca for Isaac. Okay? So this is a story that God wanted us to catch so badly that he has it repeated 3 different times in detail. Okay? So many times that I was like, dude, overkill. But that made it stick out to me. So it did its purpose, right? So in Genesis 24, Abraham's servant sees Rebecca. Okay? And what does he do to discern whether or not Rebecca actually fits what he's supposed to be searching for before approaching her? He prays, he watches, and he waits for confirmation. And when God shows up in the story, it's retold 3 times, like he's saying, hey, pay attention, this is how you do it. Okay, so what does that prove? How is that a clue for Jacob and Rachel? Well, here, I'm about to show you. So Genesis 24 served as a blueprint that Jacob actually ignored, and he should have known from the jump to follow it, because hello, it was his parents. So in Genesis 29, Jacob's been sent away, right? And he's been told, you need to marry a woman from this area, like I have, okay? So he's looking for Laban. He's also been told to find Laban by his mom, which is his mom, Rebecca's brother, okay? And he asked these guys in verse 6, is it well with him? And they say it is well. And see, Rachel, his daughter, is coming with the sheep. He said, behold, it is still high day. It is not time for the livestock to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go pasture them. But they said, we cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep. So while this is all happening, Rachel came with her father's sheep. Okay. So now as soon as Jacob saw Rachel and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. And Jacob told Rachel that he was his father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. Okay, so how do we compare that to Genesis 24? Okay, well, Jacob just jumped in, man, okay? Jumped in, full steam ahead, 0 confirmation. God didn't tell him to do this. And he didn't even try to see the kind of person that Rachel was at all. And not only that, he went up and he just kissed her, okay? So this, major red flag. Jacob started going off of feeling. She made him feel good. He started to idolize her, okay? But we have more clues as to why she wasn't who he's supposed to end up with, if you guys still don't believe me. Okay, so this brings me to clue number 2, and this is going to be what I call the name game, and it starts with Jacob wrestling with God. So after Jacob wrestles with God, he's renamed Israel, and we know that. That's the story that we've been taught since we were kids. But the Bible doesn't stop calling him Jacob after that. And that's something that a lot of people don't point out at all. It just kind of seems like the author messes up by flip-flopping the names back and forth after, right? But here's the deal, and here's what I've noticed. He's referred to as Israel when he's aligned with God's will. He's referred to as Jacob when he's leaning on his own understanding. I want you guys to keep that in mind, okay? We'll come back to the clue. So we know that he ends up having to work 14 years for Rachel because he's tricked, right? And we're told the story like, oh, true love waits. This is a sign of love, blah, blah, blah. This isn't a sign of love. It's obsession, okay? He's infatuated with her. And then he's tricked. But I want to come back to the other woman, okay? And I also want to point out that the 14 years of working were actually consequences of his actions for him not aligning himself with God. Okay, now let's move on to clue number 4. So Rachel's barren at first, and I think a lot of us try to focus on the fact that when she actually has a kid, it's Joseph. Well, she has 2, but the first kid, right, that she has is Joseph, okay? And we all love Joseph, rightfully so. He's chef's kiss, right? He's a good human, okay? But what if I told you that was God just working his goodness in a situation that he didn't ordain? And after she has Joseph, she's not immediately like, oh, thank you so much, God. She's immediately like, I want another. If Rachel has no haters, I'm dead, honestly. Rachel had no fruit, okay? We also see that with her stealing the false idols, false gods, whatever from Laban, and then lying about it and hiding it. And you have to wonder, like, did Jacob know? I think he kind of did. And I think this is kind of when he starts to see her true colors, because when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. And what's wild is that Jacob actually accidentally, like, curses Rachel by saying, whoever took it, may they die. And guess what? Next clue, she does die. She dies giving birth to that second child. And when she dies, they bury her on the side of the road instead of in the sacred place where the other wives and husbands had been buried or were supposed to be buried, starting with Abraham and Sarah. So our next clue comes in Genesis 46, verse 19, where it's saying the descendants of Jacob, right? And actually it starts out saying, these are the descendants of Israel, okay, in verse 8. Verse 19, it says, the sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife. Remember that name change I told you, the flip-flop, right? Okay, Jacob's wife. Big clue, right there, red flag. Our last and our biggest clue comes with the other woman, Leah. She's your biggest clue, okay? She was overlooked, and that's what people like to pull out of the story, or they just still completely overlook her. But God didn't overlook her, and I think that is exactly who God intended Jacob to end up with. Why? I'll tell you. If you don't know the background and you're just reading through Jacob's story, you're automatically probably just going to assume that the Messiah will come through Joseph's line because he has so many comparisons to Jesus, okay? But that's not what happens. The Messiah comes through the line of Judah, really, the line of Leah. People like to say God did this to redeem something because she was overlooked, but I think he did it because she was the one. She was supposed to be chosen, not Rachel. And this is what happens when we don't go to God to help us make decisions, to confirm, to pray, to wait, to see what he wants us to do. You have Rachel's. Food for thought.